started doing those and doing some more of those, which are less frequent actions, and more to come in 19D. The things that we've already delivered, and many of you have already deployed Fluid, which is great, and here are the kinds of things why. If you haven't deployed Fluid, it actually makes sense to deploy Fluid right now. First of all, your users will get a mobile responsive experience. Huge value in terms of the ability to do things that you may be doing today and waiting till you get home or you get to the office for a hiring manager to review candidates just on their mobile device, maybe sitting in a train in a commute. Huge value right there. The other thing is, in order to deploy Fluid, there's basically no configuration needed, right? So unlike big UI changes where you have to spend months and months of time creating new configurations for all of the functionality, you just turn on Fluid for whatever user population you need, and it inherently works because it inherits all your previous configured properties. There are many, many, many usability improvements, which, reviewing a resume, which is the most common thing you would do in a recruiting system. We reduce the time to do that. We have an improved summary card, which you have as a screenshot on the left. We now have submission list formats that work in Fluid. We have something like a quick submission search, which wasn't there before in the Flash experience, the legacy recruiting experience. I talked about redesigning the offer grid, which is one of the most improved areas in Fluid. Many, many areas, and you can see here a whole list. But the one thing that I think is underappreciated is the response time. Comparing Fluid in terms of just being able to perform faster for your users is actually a big time savings right there in itself. So many times, we get asked, okay, so I don't have X or Y feature in Fluid, and I'm waiting to roll that out. And again, I kind of keep thinking about it as, that seems like really flawed strategy. With Fluid, you can empower your hiring managers and recruiters to accomplish all of their tasks with a modern, intuitive mobile experience today. And if there are certain tasks that they don't have in Fluid, it actually takes one click to navigate back to the Flash Recruiting Center. So you don't lose any functionality. You always can go back to the Flash Recruiting Center for those tasks that aren't yet supported in Fluid. And in fact, even a user who doesn't want to use Fluid at all, maybe they don't want to switch back and forth. Well, that's their choice. They can actually conceptually never use Fluid, even if you've rolled it out to them, and keep using the Flash Legacy Center until all of the functionality is available to them in Fluid. But a user can make that choice. You don't have to make that choice up front. How do you deploy Fluid? And I think I'll build this slide out. Most companies have done pilots by now with small audiences. Incorporate the feedback. Figure out what are the features that you use that are in Fluid and not yet in Fluid, and use that as a guideline for candidates and for your not candidates, hiring managers or recruiters in terms of when you should be using Fluid or when you should be using the Legacy Recruiting Center. Then it's really, really straightforward. As an admin, you just access Fluid Recruiting as the permission you need to give for the users that you want to enable with Fluid. And then for users, they get this quick access bar that says Fluid Recruiting. From that point on, they get to go into Fluid Recruiting, or as I said, the Legacy Recruiting Center if they want to use that on an ongoing basis. We've got more than 500 customers. Many have been using Fluid exclusively now, and with activated, and you see the stats, from less than 100 when we started about a year and a half ago, now to many, many zones using Fluid. So all that's already there today, and many of you, if you're not yet on 19C, are probably 1 or 2 quarters behind, but you could get to 19C and use all of those features today. So now let me transition to what is coming in 19D, or our target release for mid-November. And what is really exciting about it is when you look at the recruiter flow end-to-end, and like we said, the core recruiter flow, we wanted to complete by 19D, and here are some of the things that are coming in 19D that really make a huge difference and do complete the core recruiter flow end-to-end. So in green are all of the things that are already there, and in yellow are the things that are coming in 19D. Creating a requisition from scratch. So if you are an organization that doesn't use templates or occasionally need to create a requisition without a template, that feature of just being able to create a requisition from scratch will now be there in 19D. The other feature, which is if I'm not yet ready to fully get the requisition ready to send to approval or post, I can just create the requisition and save it as an open item and then come back to it later. We've always had approvals through our eShare Center, and that was the way that most customers are using approvals through our email eShare option. But if you use approvals within the system, you can now use approve requisition tasks and approve offer tasks in 19D right in the Fluid interface. Some of the less frequently used options around requisitions, like putting on hold, canceling, save, we have those coming in 19D. Huge improvements in advanced search, and I'll show some of those features. Merging candidates, creating candidates, sharing candidates, a lot of those things are coming in 19D. And I think a really big one, which we heard a lot about, which is an onboarding process. If you have to start an onboarding process, you can now start that in 19D. So that's a big list of features that are planned for the 19D release. You'll see the whole list here. I covered a few of those in the flow that I showed you last time. I want to highlight a few others, and then I'll show some screenshots on how these will work. A big one here on offer management, supporting of JavaScript on the offers page. There are many customers who had very specific offer calculations that were calculated through JavaScript in the legacy recruiting center. That was a showstopper in terms of adopting Fluid for offers. So now we've actually put support for JavaScript on the offers page in Fluid Recruiting, which changes that showstopper and takes that away for many customers. I talked about this one, which is starting and canceling a onboarding process in Fluid. Another big one that I heard a lot, ability to deep link to different entities in Fluid. This is another one that I heard a lot in terms of my workflow actually includes deep links, and that's something we now have in Fluid as well. We can start a new candidate. So if you just want to create a new general profile for a candidate, that's something we can now start in Fluid as well. So with that, let me actually dive into some of these features just from a UI standpoint. Probably the biggest one is that we actually have a advanced search now as part of the Fluid Recruiting interface. So when you start sourcing for a requisition, one of the best places to find candidates is actually candidates who've already applied to other requisitions in the system. And we've got a really rich advanced search. It's going to be built out over multiple releases, but many features are available now, such as being able to create a new search with a whole variety of different search criteria, to be able to access those searches later by saving that search, to be able to leverage saved searches. And then once you have a search result, to be able to advance filter even within those search results to really narrow down to a candidate. So a really rich advanced search feature with many usability improvements compared to the legacy recruiting center search feature that you may be using today. In fact, it's one of the areas, again, I talk about Idea Lab. We used to see many ideas in Idea Lab around usability of the advanced search that we have taken into account by delivering this Fluid-based advanced search feature. On requisitions, I talked about this starting a requisition from scratch, and you can see here now that in the new requisition flow in the wizard, we have start from scratch, and a brand new empty requisition pops in, and you can then fill out those attributes on screen. There are also some of the infrequent requisition actions that were not in Fluid. We've actually put those into the Fluid experience. So it's not very often that you have to cancel or put requisitions on hold or delete requisitions entirely. So we had waited on those actions, but now we have those in the Fluid interface as well. The ability to fill a requisition manually, so giving the recruiter this ability to do this process right in the Fluid interface is another one that if you want to make the requisition marked as filled, sometimes you found the candidate and it wasn't sort of part of your workflow within Taleo. You can fill that requisition manually. Approving requisitions, I talked about this. If you're someone that actually has your hiring managers submit approvals through our system and not using our eShare email-based approvals, these approvals can actually bring you to the Fluid interface, and then in the Fluid interface now you have an ability to review the requisition or the offer and select the decision to approve it. You can actually see the entire approval path and other approvers that are part of the approval path as well. And then finally on create candidate, this is a big one in terms of if you get a resume, they aren't necessarily linked to a particular job opening and you just want to add that person as a candidate into your system. You can now add that candidate directly into the system using the create candidate flow. Take the basic information for the candidate, parse the resume for the candidate, and then add that into the flow. We also have revert. Actually, this is another important one I should have probably mentioned earlier. We get a lot of feedback about this, which was something that people wanted to do in Fluid, revert the latest change of step and status, and we now enable that in the Fluid change step status functionality. We also now have share candidate. This is a big one when it comes to many of organizations that are using this process where a recruiter actually shares the candidate that is of interest or a set of candidates that is of interest to a hiring manager and or multiple recipients. You can now do that feature right from within the Fluid interface. We talked about approvals, and deciding on offer approvals is similar to deciding on requisition approvals. We actually show that all of the offer information, the approval path, and you can make a decision to approve an offer right in Fluid as well. And then finally, the key one here, starting a new hire onboarding process, can also now be done right from within Fluid. This is a big one in terms of things that we get functionality around improving the existing Fluid feature. So for correspondence templates, we actually had a way to see the tokens right in the template, but in the Legacy Recruiting Center, there was a list of missing information on the left side, and many people said that that was something that they really wanted to bring back to the Fluid interface. And so now with 19D, we actually have that missing information table. And many of you will I know I got a lot of feedback about this one. We'll appreciate that that is now something that we have addressed in the correspondence module of Fluid to be able to see those unresolved tokens and resolve those in the left panel. Then I saved one almost, one more thing from someone that you may hear, in these, hugely important feature from a candidate experience standpoint is apply as guest. And in fact, in the Q&A, I know several of you had asked in previous quarters, hey, I've seen the apply as guest in a roadmap, and it keeps getting pushed out, it seems. Well, it's not been pushed out. When I put things in the roadmap, it's not necessarily for the next quarter, it's for the next few quarters. We've done some really impressive work around making it much more seamless when it comes for your candidates to get through the apply flow. A couple of quarters ago, we introduced the Apply with LinkedIn 2.0, where the candidates can use their LinkedIn account as the user ID and password. Here with Apply as Guest, you can actually have them get an option to not have a user ID and password at all, come back later and establish that user ID and password. So hugely important feature. If this is the most important step where drop-off happens in your apply flow. And just by enabling a button like this as Apply as Guest, you can reduce that drop-off rate significantly. So highly encourage everyone to take advantage of this feature. Many of you have been waiting for it, as you've indicated in past quarterly conversations. When we talk about the authentication here, there is a requirement, which most of you probably already do, which is to have email uniqueness enabled, because when you go through the apply flow, we do ask for your email address, and then that's how you tie back to your application and actually can create a username and password to do things like check application status, or if you're further along in the process, do pre-screening or take an assessment or background check, or start an onboarding. I mean, eventually you do need a username and password, and we do have a way for you to claim that account through your email address. We keep making the starter package for digital assistant better, and that is a place that we have a customer connect post for the digital assistant starter kit. And if you want to take advantage of this type of interaction, many customers are already using it on their candidate experience. Do talk to your account manager. We have the digital assistant technology and the starter package that continues to get enhanced for more interactive and personalized candidate experience. And then one more thing in the really important list for 19D, which is the LinkedIn Recruiter System Connect. It's a seamless integration between our product and the LinkedIn Recruiter product. So if you have recruiters who are using our LinkedIn Recruiter, you can optimize their sourcing activities and reduce the friction by having a data exchange between the two systems. There is a note here that if you do check the Customer Connect post, there are some prerequisites in terms of you do need to be able to deploy Fluid, first of all, in the organization. All of this functionality appears in the Fluid UI, and that you need the Oracle HCM cloud as a prerequisite, so that you have the talent profile import that goes along with this for the Fluid interface and the Recruiter System Connect. So what this does is that you get a LinkedIn profile preview rendered within Fluid Recruiting. So you can actually click that in icon, as you see here in the submission list, and see a LinkedIn profile preview for any candidate that is in the submission list. Really powerful feature because many candidates probably have very good LinkedIn profiles that you can then refer to as you think about whether or not you want to disposition them forward. The summary card will also have a LinkedIn icon to bring that profile preview. And if you've done any history with that candidate in LinkedIn, maybe you actually started the interaction by sending them an email in LinkedIn or sending them correspondence in the past, that history will show up as part of the history record in Taleo. Hugely important. And then bringing in notes for that candidate that were part of the LinkedIn activity for that candidate in Taleo. So those are all the things that you can do in Taleo. There's also things that you can do in LinkedIn Recruiter, which I didn't put all the screenshots in the interest of time, but within LinkedIn Recruiter, you can actually see the candidate's status within the Taleo application. So if they've applied to a submission in your company, the recruiter can see, okay, that's a candidate that I have in the ATS system. Here are all the submissions that they made in the ATS system, and here was the last step and status on those submissions. Here's where they are in the selection process, right from within LinkedIn Recruiter. So it's a really powerful integration that we've done. So continue to just say kudos to the team. There's a lot of us. I get to do a lot of the talking every quarter, but many people across the R&D organization that I want to thank for delivering all of these capabilities to you in the 19D release targeted for next month. Just want to summarize those, and a really exciting list here. Apply as guest that comes in with the career section. So for your candidates, very important thing that I think encourage everyone to deploy to reduce drop-off rate for submissions. And then on Fluid, many great features such as advanced search and filters, the ability to approve offers and requisitions, and then on many critical things such as starting the onboarding process or supporting JavaScript on the offers page. Many critical things that were blocking adoption are now taken care of in Fluid, as well as the correspondence token correction feature that many of you were looking for as far as an enhancement goes. there's always many questions about when is X or Y coming in Fluid. And so, with the safe harbor statement, I would encourage you all, since you all know Customer Connect, and this is where, this webinar is taking place, we've now added a post on Customer Connect that gives some guideline on what we expect in the first half of 2020 and what we expect in the second half of 2020. So do refer to that post on Customer Connect in terms of future Fluid functionality. As a heads up, basically all of our resources in 2020 will be focused on finishing Fluid. And so, this is, it's really exciting. We're down to the last 2, 3, 4 quarters now. Most of the features that are used every day are already in. And, look forward to kind of the end of that journey and having a very good adoption from you all in terms of being able to give your users that very modern, very digital, very mobile responsive experience on all of the features that they use and love already in Taleo. So with that, this is Samir Khosla. I'm signing off for this quarter. We'll continue to leave the WebEx open so you can ask more questions. And I'll turn to my colleagues, Robert and Ali here. Anything that you wanted to address on the live call before we sign off? Yeah, I see a question here, and I think that's probably worth reiterating. I can't, probably highlight it enough, right? And many times Fluid gets recast as, okay, it's the same functionality, but, I just have no real benefit from it. And it's really important to highlight, why we're making such a big investment in Fluid recruiting and what are the big benefits. And I would say they're probably in 3 categories, and I put this in the most to least important. One is there are very significant usability gains in Fluid recruiting. In terms of the ability to do things faster, better, easier, simpler, there are so many examples of that. When you change step and status, today that is just not a very clear flow. And that's the most important thing that people do when it comes to a recruiting system. When it comes to previewing resumes and moving quickly through resumes, there's no good way to do that. It takes about 4 clicks just to open a resume in Recruiting Center. We've made that 1-click preview and then the ability to very quickly make decisions on those resumes. All of the most important tasks are significantly faster in Fluid. Creating an offer is one of the other great examples. So number one, it's just a much improved experience with much better usability, especially for infrequent users. Number 2, it is mobile responsive. So everything that is available to you in Fluid recruiting will, is designed so that it can be operated from a mobile phone. So you just have to log into your browser on a mobile device and can actually take action in Fluid recruiting. And then third is the performance, right? So it takes a long time if you actually load Recruiting Center today. Many times people can be waiting 30 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes to have the flash load. This Fluid is a pure HTML experience. Loads within seconds, transactions perform within seconds. Waiting for 30 seconds, a minute is just a really poor experience and not something that users want to do in modern applications. So again, I cannot highlight enough. Fluid is not just about taking the same features and making them look different. It's we're making them better, we're making them mobile responsive, and we're making them highly performant. So yeah, we'll continue to address questions on WebEx. We'll sign off for now and have a great rest of the year. We'll talk to you in anticipation of our first quarterly update again 3 months from now in early 2020. So thank you all, and this is Samir Khosla signing off.
On behalf of Oracle University, thank you for attending this live presentation.